These are the 1,000 layer French fry. I found a formula that I love and I'm gonna show it to you right now. Now to make the world's best French fries, or the world's most different French fries, you're only gonna need three ingredients if you include salt. One potato, which is about 12 to 14 ounces, and mochi flour. This is Japanese style mochi flour, and it's typically used to make Japanese confectionaries. I was actually inspired to try this because I recently had a mochi donut. This is where they might take their mixture to make donuts, but add in mochi flour, and it gives them this incredible chewiness to them. And I have applied it to the 1,000 layer French fries. The potato is a traditional russet or Idaho potato. This potato is very, very dry and doesn't leach out a ton of moisture when baking it or frying it. So this is the ideal potato for this. All I'm gonna do is peel this. Once the potato is peeled, the next thing we have to do is use a mandolin to make super thin slices. I know using a mandolin can be scary for a lot of you, and if it is, I would recommend using the guard that it comes with. You can't really make this recipe without a mandolin, so if you want to pick one, I'll throw one in the description down below so you can pick one up. The other thing is to make sure that the mandolin lines up, so this way the potato is not wider than the mandolin like mine is. So I'm actually going to trim back some of the side of the potato, and this way it's even on the mandolin and none of the sides go beyond the mandolin blade. Then I'm going to make nice, thin, long slices. This is a little bit too thick, so I'm actually going to adjust my mandolin and get super, super thin slices. This is what I'm looking for, nice and thin, and I can kind of see my fingers through the bottom of it. Now I'm keeping my recipe very simple. For every one potato, one Idaho potato, or for every 10 to 12 ounces of potato, I'm using about 1 tablespoon of mochi flour. Since my potato is about 15 ounces, I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons of mochi flour. I'm seasoning this with a good amount of salt. I put in just about a tablespoon of salt here. This is also going to be seasoned after it's done cooking too, so remember that. You don't want to over season right now. Now basically, mix this together. Make sure all of the mochi is covering as much of that potato as possible, and none of the mochi flour is left at the bottom of the bowl. And then once the bottom of the bowl kind of looks like that and there's nothing left, this is where we can start layering this. Now I'm using a very small 8-inch by 4-inch sheet tray. If you don't have one of these, you can use a small baking dish, but you want a shallow dish. You don't want these to be too thick, otherwise they're not French fries. And ideally, you would want to use parchment paper and not aluminum, just because the aluminum does stick, so I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of non-stick spray. Now we just layer this. I like to make sure that my potatoes overlap just a little bit so we create a nice seam, and that's all that I'm going for. I'm going to repeat this until I finish all of my potato. My goal for stacking this was to just make sure it's as even as possible, and if it's not super even, it's okay, because as it cooks, it will even out. And after we let it rest overnight, it's going to even out even more because there's gonna be a bunch of weight on top of this. I'm going to take another piece of aluminum foil. I'm gonna spray the top of this so it doesn't stick too much. Then I'm going to place this down onto my sheet tray, and then this is going to be baked in the oven for about an hour at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, or until a toothpick or cake tester goes into it super soft, no resistance. But because I really like you guys, I prepped one ahead of time so you can see what it looks like right now. After baking this and letting it rest overnight with a bunch of books on top of it to make sure it's pressed, this is how thick my potatoes now are. You can see there's a ton of layers in there, and this is where we get to cut it and fry this up. Best way to do this is by removing it off of this aluminum foil. You don't actually want to cut the aluminum foil with it. Flip this onto a cutting board, and then what you really need to do with this is make sure you're cutting with the potato. So you can see how my potatoes on this one were lined up this way. So I'm going to cut like that. I'm going to cut these into nice little, whoa, chill out, nice little French fries. And what's great about this is you can cut up as much as you want, and it freezes really well. So if you're not gonna use all of it, you can freeze a huge chunk of it and save it for later. In this case, I'm going to do just a little over half of it, making 8 French fries, which is still a ton of potato. The rest of it is going to go back onto this sheet tray, and I'm going to save these big guys for later. And admittedly, this is perfect for breakfast if you just want to pull it out and you can start deep frying it. Like pull it out the night before and let it defrost if you've frozen it. So good. Now these bad boys are ready to deep fry. Now for these, I mentioned deep frying. You actually don't want to deep fry these because those layers could potentially fall apart if you deep fried them. You want to avoid deep frying. We're going to more or less shallow fry them in a saute pan. I'm going to take one of my potatoes. Oh, that oil is ready to go. Ooh, it might be a little bit too hot. It's okay. I'm trying to keep the oil around 325 degrees. So by adding in a couple of these, it should cool down the oil. Let's see, can we do 4 at a time? I think we can do 4 at a time. Now, because the potato is cooked all the way through from baking it in the oven ahead of time, all we're really trying to do is deep fry it to give it a bunch of texture and a lot of color. This will also not really cook the inside any further, and you're gonna see what this looks like once we bite into it. It's super nice. After a couple of minutes, I'm just giving these a nice flip. This way I can cook both sides evenly. Whoa, come on, flip. Flip, there we go. Oh, that color is really, really nice. Now I'm flipping these just a little bit more so this way I can cook the sides evenly as well. You can see now that's what's exposed is the side of the potato on top. So I'm cooking the other side of it, making sure it's fully submerged, and then we're gonna flip it one more time. So basically you're flipping it 4 times during the cooking process, but this still really only takes about 3 to 4 minutes max. And these bad boys are ready to go. I'm gonna remove these and immediately place them on a paper towel to drain any excess oil. Oh, these look so beautiful. These look so nice. Look at the color on these. But remember, just like any French fry, even though these have been seasoned ahead of time, we're still gonna add a bit of salt to the top of them. Look at how gorgeous those are. Please tell me those are not some of the best French fry looking things you've ever seen. I wanna show you what it looks like raw, so this way you can see the impact of the mochi flour. If you look at the top right over here, and you see my finger, if you see that gumminess that's coming off of it, that's all from the mochi flour. That's gonna give it that chewiness. Now I'm going to immediately start cooking the second batch. So this way everything is just done. Potatoes are super interesting because they're super versatile, they're very cheap, and they have an insane amount of uses. Making these is relatively simple, super cheap, but it does need just a little bit of work if you want to wow someone. But what you get out of it is absolutely stupendous. This is a beautiful looking French fry, especially if you want to impress someone. Let's take a bite out of it. You get different layers of crunchiness, obviously because of the layer of the potato, but when I open this thing up, you can see how soft the potato is on the inside while maintaining this beautiful crust on the outside. And it's salted all the way throughout. There's not only salt on the crust that we added after deep frying them, but there's also salt on the inside. Now this does mean a couple of things. You can absolutely use your favorite spice rub or seasoning on the inside of those layers. So when you go to mix it with the mochi flour, add your favorite spice rub to it. Imagine these with a curry spice. These would just be curry chips without anything else, and it would be amazing. And now I want one of you guys to do that for me, because I didn't think of that until now. Without the mochi flour, these are still amazing. But with the mochi flour, you not only get the soft chewiness of the inside, you get the beautiful texture on the outside. So if you wanna make these, here is my golden ratio. 10 to 12 ounces of thinly sliced potato, about 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, and 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of mochi flour. That's all you need. Now I'm going to task you with making these. These would also go really well with my flavor bomb secret. If you want to watch that, click or tap right over here. My name is Paul, and remember, keep playing with your food.